and welcome to Whose Turn Is It Anyway, a podcast all about our board game group and the board games we play. I'm Adrian, your new first player, and I'm joined today by two other players, Kerley and JP. As you join us, we've just completed setup for today's episode with our board in the middle of the table and components within easy reach. So we are due to start with our main topic today being crowdfunding. But first, how are we all doing today?
Pretty good.
Yeah, really good, thanks.
Yeah.
Nice day at work, so can't complain.
It's weird being on this side of the table. As in, not the first player. I've been usurped. I've been kicked off.
You have been kicked off, yeah. No, it was
rebellion formed.
It was time someone else did your job better for you.
That's true. There's plenty of opportunities for people to do it better, which I'm all for. It's all good. It's how we evolve. It's how we get better. So, yeah. No, it's good to have you as first player, mate.
Thank you very much. So you've been on holiday on your holidays recently.
I sit here with a kind of glowing tan. I think it's gone less red as the week's gone on. But yes, I've come back from Vegas, which has been absolutely amazing. So I've been before. This is my second trip. And yeah, bit of gambling, bit of sunbathing, lots of walking, lots of losing money, the usual stuff.
Oh, Vegas then.
Vegas, standard Vegas things. But no, it's always good to get back out there. And I think if Ian was on the podcast, he would want to grill me for about another 50 minutes on the topic. But thank God he's not, so we can carry on.
Exactly.
What about yourself, Kerley?
Standard week for me, I'm afraid. You know. Yeah, work's been absolutely fine. Been loving life. Weather's starting to pick up, but yeah,
it is.
Good, thanks.
It's been nice out there, isn't it?
Yeah, summer's on its way.
I know you went on holiday for sun, but we had it all right here as well.
Yeah, yeah. Wasn't 35 degrees though, was it?
Well, no, it's true, but it was close, I think.
Maybe.
I wouldn't want it that hot.
No, it was bloody hot.
Nice. In which case, should we go straight into our first turn?
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Well, in which case, we should talk about you and me, and we should talk about all the good things and the bad things that have been when we talk about Hex.
Oh dear.
I'm like 60% proud and 40% disgusted with myself. I think in that moment.
You feel
I
dirty.
enjoyed it.
Do you feel dirty?
Reminds me of my brother's bad jokes. I'm happy.
I think we needed to back him up though and say, let's talk about Hex.
No, you do that.
So, Kerley, what have you been playing recently?
Well, I've had some really good games lately, actually, in the last week or so. Some things that we haven't played very often. So we had a small games night, and we had a game of Ark Nova as well. That was really good fun. Thoroughly enjoyed that. Not the first time I played it quite a few times, but yeah, it's the first time playing with James Davey, I think.
Love how you say his full name. It's like he's been naughty.
Well, this is it, young James. Well, it's only because when he did his intro episode, I couldn't really decide what he actually wanted to be called.
No, we call him Davey.
Yeah,
even if he doesn't like it.
Yeah, all right, yeah. Davey then. But anyway, yeah, so I played with Davey, and he's always a good challenge on those types of games, so it was nice to play him. But yeah, beat him anyway. So.
I was going to say, who won? Did you win again?
Of course I did,
yeah.
You've played it quite a bit though recently, haven't you? And Ark Nova? What are you on, like 20 plays, 30 plays?
Oh, God, no. Seriously? 10, probably maybe a
10.
dozen. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, me and Becky played it a few times when it first arrived. So, yeah, maybe 12, 15.
For those that don't know or haven't heard of Ark Nova, which I'd be surprised because it's usually everyone's talking about it, came out. Literally, it kind of came out of nowhere, and then everyone went, "Oh my God, it's the new Terraforming Mars!" And then the usual stuff of comparisons of Terraforming Mars. But what is it?
So essentially, I mean, there are comparisons to Terraforming Mars, but it doesn't play the same. It's a zoo-based kind of mixture between a card engine building game, got elements of a worker placement game, creating your own puzzle on the board as well. It throws together some of my favourite elements of a lot of other games. But yeah, it's basically, the idea is that you get a deck of one of three things. So it's either animals, sponsors, or conservation efforts. And you use these cards, you get cards, and you make your own little zoo. And how profitable it is, how well you do in conservation as well, equals how many, essentially, the VP points you get. Brilliant game. Loads of different cards that you can pick up, loads of variation to be had, and loads of different interesting elements to it. What I would say is they've got a really interesting way of actually ending the game, which is either it's a Marmite for a lot of people. It's probably my favourite game at the moment. I say at the moment, but it is a little bit Marmite in its victory points. Yeah. So essentially what it is it's all about that last turn. So it's when you meet in the middle and everyone gets one more turn after that. And it's actually how much of a difference you have between your conservation and your, I forget, the appeal is how many points that you actually get overall. So that final turn, you know, for an example, if you get a double final turn, it's like disproportionately powerful, you know?
The thing I like about it is the mechanic that I enjoy is the action selection kind of mechanism with the 5 cards, and they've lifted it straight from Civilization New Dawn, because it's exactly the same how it works in that game, where you have the row of 5 cards, you pick the card you want to play at the power level it's at, and then that shifts to the back of the queue and everything orders back up.
Right, okay.
That in itself, organising which action to play at what power level and chaining those moves together, God, it's very satisfying when you get it right.
Yeah.
when you don't, then it's like bollocks.
And they make that decision really interesting, like especially with like the X's and how you accumulate those can bleed into other turns, and you know, it makes it a very interesting puzzle to work out.
Nice.
Okay, moving on to JP. Apart from Blackjack, what else have you been playing for the last couple of weeks?
I was going to say it's definitely been Blackjack. I wouldn't say I've been playing a lot of it. Just I'm not a big gambler myself, so I just have a little flutter every now and then. But I managed to get up on the monies. What was it, about $133 up? I'll take it. It's better than being down. But now on the gaming front, as you know, I kind of kept myself to myself before the holiday, and I've been playing some solo stuff. So I got Under Falling Skies, which is a game purely solo, and it kind of reminds you of Space Invaders in the way it works. And it's a fun game you can set up in 1 minute, 2 minutes tops, and it's essentially, you kind of imagine the board being this long column. It's got 5 columns within it. And on the bottom of the board is your base, and there's got different rooms on it that do different things.
It reminds me of XCOM, that bottom half of the board it's those little rectangles that are just waiting for you to sort of dig into them or whatever.
Absolutely.
And unearth them.
Yeah, it kind of feels in that way where you kind of expand in different rooms. But yeah, you've got rooms that will blast the aliens out of the sky. You've got rooms that will do research. You've got rooms that will generate power. And then you've got ones that will do robots and other things. But the idea is you've got the mothership right at the top, and every round this mothership's going to kind of keep descending, just like Space Invaders, and it's going to spawn these spaceships that come down. But the rub of the game is that you get 5 dice, and 3 of them are grey, 2 of them are white. You roll the dice at the beginning of the round, and you have to assign the dice to the rooms in the columns. The number that you put in, generally the higher the number, the better the yield for the room. You're going to get more power, it's going to fight more things, but that's also the spaces the ship moves down in that column. So you're trying to kind of time or get the right numbers to move the ships onto certain spaces on this board so that you can blow them up. So a lot of them have like explosion spaces, some of them have like left chevron arrows or right chevron arrows to move them into different columns. So it becomes this really puzzly game of roll my dice, I've got to figure out where I want to put my stuff, get the ships in the right way, and then feel good when they all get blown up. But it never really happens that way.
No, fair enough.
But the fun part of it is if you ever use a white dice, you have to re-roll the entire dice that you've got in your pool. So sometimes you're rolling like all 6s, which never happens, but which you might not want because that's just going to make all the ships come down really quick. You might want some 1s and 2s, but you think if I put the white one there, I might be able to change my look and things like that. But yeah, it's just a fun little game, and it comes with like a campaign mode, which again is good fun. You can kind of pick your scenario, which city you want to defend. It adds some extra rules in play, and you pick your characters that can kind of help you along the way. So I've just done the first scenario out of 8, and yes, I'm not very far. I'm not very good at it either, but it's quite fun. You can play for half hour. It reminded me of what you said, Adrian, on a previous episode of Railroad Inc. That kind of feeling of busting the game out for half hour, roll some dice, puzzling stuff
nice,
out.
Relaxed sort of puzzle solving half hour or whatever. It's
not massively deep, but it's very satisfying when you win the scenario and you go, yes, I'm clever. I did it.
It's also got great table presence for a little solo player game. It's that long old board with all these nice little plastic and wooden dice and all that. Like, it looks great on the table, considering potentially it's only you that's going to be looking at it while you're
and it's fair, it's like
playing.
£20. It's not that much. There's a lot of game in there, considering what you get, and a lot of replayability. But yeah, it's that crossword puzzle kind of game. You just want to do something for a half hour, you can bust it out. It's not something I'll probably spend all night doing.
I don't do that with board games, but it reminds me of the way I feel about Slay the Spire.
Yeah.
I'll get on the Alpha on Slay the Spire on my PC, which actually Slay the Spire is one of the few games that actually does play like a board game, kind of. That kind of, so that's the way I treat that.
Yeah, it's the same principle. So lots of fun. If you've not heard of it, check it out, I'd say, especially if you like solo stuff. But that's me. How about you?
So I got transported back to the 80s, essentially. A friend...
Wow. Jitterbug.
That's a good board game.
It's a good decade. It's a great decade.
Yeah, it's not bad. Didn't see much of it.
Yeah.
So a friend of mine had the new HeroQuest, busted that out. I'd never played it before.
Ooh.
It felt like an 80s game. It was... it's got all the rooms in it, and you've got a games master at the end behind his little screen who knows where all the corridors lead and where all the doors are going to go out, and you explore it and you beat up goblins and trolls or orcs or whatever they were. It feels like of that time. It's a nice sort of reminisce to when board games were like that, and they've done a great job of making it look quality. All the cards are printed nicely, the models look good, the board's printed well. But mechanically, it's definitely a game from that sort of late 80s, early 90s period. But I had a blast. It was just fun, just rolling dice and moving around. And then, why are you in the way? Because there's no mechanic for people to move through other things. And, you're in the way again and again. And it just feels like all those sort of things that modern games have ironed out. But I had a blast. I really did. It was the first time I'd played that. It's the first time I'd played HeroQuest. And it was just great to chuck some dice and cast some spells and just see what was in the dungeon and where it was and what's around this corner. Oh, it's 2 trolls.
Yeah, I don't know about you, Kerley. Did you used to have it as a kid?
Yeah.
Used to play with it. Yeah. Same here. I had it in the 80s, along with Blood Bowl, and they were just some of the 2 greatest experiences I had. I think
I had that and Space Crusade.
Oh no, I had that as well.
Yeah,
that was like the Space Hulk light.
I think it was. This was it. It was HeroQuest, Space Crusade, and Crossbows and Catapults. That was me and my brothers when we were kids.
Yeah.
It was good, simple times.
Do you need any other games then, did you? Happy with those?
Very happy.
Is it still got the roll and move fun?
Yep. Yeah, still roll some dice off the 2 dice.
Is it 2d6?
2d6.
Is that how I can't remember.
And then you move that distance.
So sometimes you're moving 2, sometimes you're moving 12.
Yeah. And so it can drastically affect your turn, and that's what I was saying. It feels like old mechanics, and it was great to bust through it and kind of go, yeah, these aren't games. This isn't what games look like anymore, for probably a good reason, because it was rubbish when you just wanted to catch up with the rest of the group and you rolled 4 like 3 turns in a row. Hold up, guys! I'm coming.
There's no thematic reason why I can't keep up with you.
Yeah.
There isn't. I can't do
why
it.
the elf couldn't keep up with the dwarf for no apparent reason. It was So there was moments like that, and there was moments where again, you're rolling dice to hit, and there's no real modifiers. Or I get to roll 3 dice or 1 dice. That's about as good as it gets. You do get different chances of hitting things, but you also get just as many chances of rolling a load of ones or not ones. The skulls versus the shields. And all that kind of stuff. So yeah, it was good. I had a good time. It is very much of its age, and I think it's nice to reminisce. Like you guys, I had Space Hulk and Blood Bowl. I didn't do HeroQuest, but it definitely sort of reminded me of that age of board gaming. And great fun, great reprint. They've done a great job on production of that. Brilliant. Right, okay. And so we move on to our second turn, which is the main event, where we will be talking about crowdfunding culture. I think most people listening to this will know what crowdfunding is, but for those who don't, we'll just quickly go over sort of a bit of the history and what crowdfunding is all about. It's mostly websites and businesses who offer a way for you to back an idea by saying, I will pay X amount, and in return, if that idea comes to fruition, you will get this, that, and the other. Obviously, in this instance, we're talking about board games, but there's plenty out there. This is normally to help, this was originally designed to help small businesses that couldn't put up the capital in the first place to get an idea to fruition, because, if they didn't hit the Kickstarter goal or, the crowdfunding goal, then the product wouldn't land, they wouldn't get the money. It was kind of a safe system. If they did hit the goal, they would get the money, and the expectation would be that you would get a product out at the end of it. I think it's fair to say now that that's not the case anymore. It's become a bit of an elaborate pre-order system with some fantastic marketing, that you can essentially market something that may not have been seen before, but they've got most of these companies already have the capital there. Like, you look at some of the board games that are on Kickstarter and Gamefound, some of the board gaming companies.
Simon.
Yeah, those kind of ones. They already have more than enough capital to put this product out there. What they're doing is they're gaining hype through it. I think that's a fair enough explanation and a bit of history around crowdfunding. Anything you guys wanted to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, I do agree with all the points that you made, especially around hype as well. I do think that a lot of the reason the companies do it / the reason why it's so popular is just a simple phrase, fear of missing out. And I do think there is a real fine line that sometimes is danced over, where companies are exploiting people's fear of missing out. And I think that's what Kickstarter's strength and weakness is at the same time.
I'd absolutely agree. I would say there are still plenty of companies out there. Like, I'm on, I think it's the Board Game Lab, it's called, or the Board Game Designers Lab on Facebook. And there's plenty of, you can tell, little indie designers doing everything themselves, desperately trying to get all their bits and pieces together, who are going on Kickstarter and launching products that they absolutely would not be able to do without crowdfunding. I think for the most part, the big ones that you hear a lot about are by companies who have already got plenty of skin in the game in this instance, and they've got the capital already sat there, that they could then invest in that game and produce that game. It's just all these other bonuses. So does anyone want to kick in about their experiences, or how often they're backing? Or
I've never done it before. What is Kickstarter?
Yeah, I think I could probably rattle off about half a dozen of your Kickstarters without even thinking about it.
Anything that contains neoprene and poker chips is a good start.
But no, I don't think my biggest problem with Kickstarter is not the big companies that can't fund their own, actually, interestingly enough. It's more the companies that provide about 18 add-ons for about $20 a piece extra, or pounds or euros or whatever it works out to, and you end up like, oh well, I need everything that they've got, and it comes to about £300 for a flipping board game. And it's like,
that's the FOMO thing though, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah. So for an example, I backed Frosthaven, which is due to come soon. Right, but they've been
saying that though for a long time.
Yeah, I know. I mean, they've had their 2-year anniversary, to be fair, so it can't be much longer, surely. But the thing is with that one, what I liked about it, there isn't 1,000,001 expansions. The price is the price is the price, and I can deal with that. I don't care if they got enough money to make it, as long as I don't feel they're trying to take advantage of me. Yeah. I can cope with that. I can cope with the evolution of Kickstarter in that direction. It was. Hey, look, people will argue with me, but I don't like the whole, like Bloodborne. I mean, I've done it, don't get me wrong. Anyone out there who's done it before and they've ordered X amount of flipping expansions that they probably never open, I've done it. I've been there. Bloodborne, I had 4 expansions. I think the famous one, I didn't do it, but I remember at the time Dark Souls was around, 8 expansions or something ridiculous, or special characters.
Never play.
Yeah. And, it was one of those that people just caught up in the hype and ended up probably just spending a hell of a lot more than they actually needed to. But,
But generally, do you feel your experiences are good on Kickstarter, bad, indifferent? Like, how are you feeling about what you've backed personally?
I feel like I've had more trouble with non-board game Kickstarters than I have with board game Kickstarters. I do tend to find that most board game Kickstarters tend to be...
It's just going back to your charging cable.
Yes, exactly.
I knew exactly where you were going with
this. What popped into my head was that bloody charging cable. I think it was literally a 2-month Kickstarter where it was going to be delivered in 2 months. Over a year later, for a flipping charging cable for my phone that I no longer had, by the way.
So let's just explain this to the listeners, right? So this charging cable's got like little magnets on it, so you can coil it around, right? So it keeps it all tidy. That was the selling point of this charging cable.
Absolutely, yeah.
A year.
Yeah, a year.
Brilliant.
For a charging cable.
And at the time to get those magnets, I'm sure.
Yeah, sourced them.
It was just, I hadn't done Kickstarter very much, and I assumed that if it was only a month or 2 away for actual delivery, that they must have a robust way of actually getting that to you. But yeah, no, what they didn't have any plan at all and just made a total pig's ear of it basically. So yeah, I've had a pretty good time with board game Kickstarters.
Okay.
I will say I'm quite a patient person.
Yeah.
I order them and then just go, it turns up when it turns up.
I think if you're into kickstarting stuff, you have to have patience. I think I've had 3 Kickstarters deliver on time out of 20 to 30.
I don't know.
And one of those was a friend's Kickstarter where he was trying to create a miniature war game, and they literally hand delivered it to my door because they live just round the corner, and I think that's possibly the reason why I got it on time. To be fair, they did post pretty much everything, I think, on the date they said they were delivered by. So there are ones out there that do deliver on time, but I think it's fair to say that if you're into Kickstarters, you've got to be prepared to watch that arrival date slip a little bit. 4, 5, 6 times.
Yeah, that's the thing for me is you get the buzz of the campaign and you look at it, especially like for me, it's Chip Theory Games put one out there or Mind Clash Games put one out there. I'm like the tractor beam straight in. What's this all about? I'll have a look, and I get really excited, and I go, is this pledge, is that pledge? And you kind of get sucked into the void of it. And then you go through the motions of the 2 weeks or whatever it is, and like you say, then you've got to wait. And then you're kind of clambering onto those communications that you get. Update, what's going on? Oh, excellent. There's some meeples that I've not seen before. Amazing. And then another month. But at some point, your kind of hype dissipates a little bit naturally because you're really excited, and now you've got to wait a year and a half.
A year or whatever it is. And then just up to about 2 weeks before, the hype comes back for me.
Sometimes it doesn't. That's the thing. I think sometimes you I don't know if you mature in your thinking or you're playing other stuff and you kind of forget about it, and then sometimes the games come and you're going, why did I back that?
Oh, really? Is that
sometimes I've
got had a few of those?
Yeah, I've got some on the horizon where would I have backed that now? Back, feeling how I feel.
Yeah.
Probably not. I don't know. It's a strange one. I'll probably be excited when it turns up, but I just don't feel like as excited, which you won't do, will you? Because you're not in that peak of hype.
Yeah, as you kind of mentioned, that it creates that FOMO that everything's going on. You feel like part of a group of people who are all excited for it, and then you get 6 months, 12 months, 2 years of just waiting and not knowing if it's going to get delayed further, and seeing occasional updates. Some you might be really happy with, some you may not be happy with. And you just kind of have to then have that very gentle ride almost where you don't get too bothered about it before it then delivers, and hope that you like it when it arrives. You
kind of need to forget about it, I think. Yeah. I'm not saying like we shouldn't get communications. You should absolutely get them, because if you packed as many as I have over lockdown, you forget what the hell you've backed and when it's supposed to be arriving.
Yeah, that's the key with lockdown. It was like that, but that buzz for me was used as a bit of a little endorphin kick when you ordered something, and then I've got
what you can play when you get out of lockdown.
I've got about 8 things on order that were all ordered during lockdown.
Absolutely, me too.
Well, I behaved during lockdown. I think I was the opposite to that. I think I backed 1 Kickstarter during lockdown.
Without exaggerating, I think I probably would say I did 7 in lockdown.
Yeah, probably about the same for me.
Yeah, a lot of them are delivered already, to be honest.
Yeah, so, that's as safe. Lockdown was just over a year ago, essentially, from depending upon which lockdown you're talking about.
Oh, it's definitely 2020.
Yeah, 2020.
Yeah, so again, 18 months, probably. Yeah. It's safe to say that they've at least arrived in that time.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, personally, I think I've become much more cautious because I was working out of 20 odd board game and war game related Kickstarters. I think I've got 4 left in my possession. I am not the best at picking them. I can safely say that. And the hype happens in the moment. Some of them have had a fair bit of play, but very rarely have they become my favourite thing. And therefore they kind of get shipped on, because I think that's fair to say it's one of the risks you have with backing something is you genuinely don't know what the product looks like. Unless it's a reprint or something like that, you are backing this idea, and this idea evolves and changes sometimes.
Maybe not to the way you like.
Yeah, maybe not to the way you like. Great Wall is one of the ones that hopefully we're going to get to the table soon. And that went through a massive evolution from where it was at day one of the Kickstarter to being delivered. And I don't know whether it's for good or bad, but it's definitely not the game I backed originally. Yeah. It has the very basic fundamentals, but you can tell that they've reworked it quite a bit in that time. And so that is part of the risk, isn't it? Is that you are just backing an idea. That idea can evolve, it can change. It could not arrive at all.
Yeah, that's also a possibility. I've seen some right horror stories.
I must say, like, the Kickstarter in general has really woken me up to the importance of game designers and publishers. Like, I do my research a lot more when I'm looking to back a Kickstarter project, and I'm way more, like, for you, talking about, like, I would never have looked like a publisher. Previously, I'd have just had a look. Did I like the theme of it? Did it look interesting? And I'd have gone for it if I fancied it. Whereas now, I'll actually look at, okay, who designed it? Because I'm just thinking back, I know it's a bit of a segue, but I remember Wingspan. I was really reluctant to play it because the theme just did not interest me at all. The artwork didn't look massively interesting to me, and I was just like, no. And then I turned up here, played it once, and I was like, this is amazing. Love that game. And so it really woke me up to the importance of game design. So I look at the game designers now. What have they done previously? Have they had previous Kickstarters? What are the ratings of those previous Kickstarters on BGG maybe? See what the overall turnout was on it, you know? Doing a lot more, because what you tend to find with BGG, with Kickstarters, this is part of what you were saying with hype, is that the scores either get dumped or they get hyped up to the max.
You can be 12 months before delivery and it can be 1 star or 10 stars, and it's really hard to know. I think you're right. I remember a couple of years back, a friend of mine had got, as a Christmas present, I believe, AVP, Aliens vs. Predators, by Produce Games, I think it was. And that delivered in parts because they completely overpromised what they were going to do, similar to Dark Souls. They totally overpromised, and then they had to deliver bit by bit. And sometimes the retail game was out there for 12, 18 months before people were getting their game that they'd kickstarted. So they'd put their money in to make this idea happen, and the company had run out of money, so they were having to sell retail games to then make a profit to fund the rest of the Kickstarter. And my friend was walking up to the Prodos, I'm sure it's Prodos, something like that. They were walking up to that booth and just saying, I've got like £100 worth of Kickstarter credit, because that's how they handled it. I will have £100 worth of stuff, whatever I can have now, so that they knew they were getting that. And I just think that's, if that was your first taste of Kickstarter, would you ever back again? And luckily, I think it's fair to say that that doesn't happen too much. But you talked about Dark Souls. I'm very much aware that SFG, Steamforged Games, lost a lot of rep that they'd built up through the release of Guild Ball and how that Kickstarter had been handled. They lost a lot of it because of the way they handled Dark Souls. And so I think a lot of people do remember those bad Kickstarters, and it can affect future ones. But I think for the most part, you do generally get it. As we sort of said, it's delayed, isn't it?
Yeah.
Nearly always. I mean, Awaken Realms, we talked about Nemesis before, just talked about the Great Wall. Whether it was Dawnfall, Downfall, I owned it, I sold it. Whatever it was called, Dawnfall, Downfall, The Edge.
I was thinking Downfall, the one with the cops.
No. Nothing like that.
No, it's not the same, no. Okay.
All of those games that Awaken Realms has produced, even this War of Mine, which I quite enjoyed before I got rid of it, they all arrived late.
Yeah.
By a significant amount of time, and not insignificant amount of time at least.
Like 3 to 6 months.
You kind of have to get used to it. And if you look at anyone backing Awaken Realms, the first thing they'll tell you is that delivery date is probably 6 months to a year out.
Yeah.
And so people now go into Awaken Realms Gamefounds, because that's how they are now. That's their platform. They go into those knowing that they're going to expect a large delay. So I think a couple of bits and pieces that we sort of have talked about off the podcast before that I think it's probably worth going through as positives is that creation of a community that Kickstarter allows. We talked about how a game can change quite significantly. Sometimes, and I've seen it a few times, it can change because of feedback in a positive way that they've received. Why have you not added this part? Why does this mechanic not do this? Mm-hmm. They'll get repeated feedback on it, and it allows them to perfect a game. And ultimately, it means that we're not waiting for a second or third reprint for them to get all these things right through selling a board game, having it played for 3-6 months, and then deciding, oh, now we'll reprint. They're getting it before they get to print the product. And I think for consumers, for board gamers, I think that's a really positive thing. I think it allows a much better...
Do you think, not to kind of spin this into a negative, because I know you're going through positives and I just want to keep it there, but do you think that could also be a bad thing sometimes when people think they know what they want and actually do they? Because they're not game designers.
No,
people.
I have seen, and we'll come on to it probably a bit later as well. Yeah. I have seen where, and again, that 1,000 expansions, where a nice, simple, this is a 2 to 4 player game, has turned into, with a 5 and 6 player expansion and a solo mode and a cooperative mode and a semi-cooperative mode and a campaign mode, and you're like, where's all this come from? It started off as a nice 4 player, then someone's asked for co-ops, you've done that, and then someone's asked, 5 and 6 players, and you've done that, and you think, is this now the product that I backed on day one?
Yeah.
Because it doesn't feel like it anymore to me.
But this is the difference, isn't it, of potentially a publisher or whoever's kind of managing that Kickstarter or crowdfund is kind of being a bit of a sellout because they're going, someone's asked for a co-op. I wonder how many people would buy a co-op if we added an extra box on there. Loads of money, throw it in there. It's not for the good of the game.
No.
It's just for purely a profit thing, which, let's face it, it's a product supposed to make profit. That's the whole purpose of it. But actually what you're suggesting on the positive, to bring it back again, is to kind of tweak the game, the idea, the premise, the project itself, and actually trying to make it better and elevate it through the feedback of people maybe have tested it on Tabletop Simulator or whatever, live kind of feedback.
Yeah, I do think that Kickstarters essentially struggle. It's not just about whether you create all the additional add-ons for loads of extra money and things like that. It's also about the marketing managers and everyone else trying to ride a hype wave without turning it into some sort of mob going after their blood regarding things that are missing that other people think should be part of it. So I think it's a matter of maybe the thing that I think Frosthaven, is it Isaac?
Childress. Yeah.
Childress. He's come out and he's always really frank with his communication, like we've decided to do this or we've decided against that, and just being really honest with people about the direction of where it's going. And I think that's a really important part of a good Kickstarter. And that is where it's important to be able to challenge, going to your point of, you don't always know what you want, is what it comes down to. So, it's an important part of a designer's job to actually say, we don't think it's going to work in the way that you guys want.
Yeah, this isn't my vision.
No.
Yeah, it's important to put that line in the sand and go, no, okay, we were listening to you up to this point. However, that's not going to work with. And I think, as you say, a good marketing manager will do that. And I think we've kind of skirted around a point here as well that I think can make or break a Kickstarter, which is stretch goals.
Yeah.
So once you've hit your total, normally, for a lot of Kickstarters, what they'll then do is, if we get another 20,000, we'll add in this character or this upgrade. Some of them are definitely pre-baked. I think a lot these days are now pre-baked in. Is that they already know they're going to launch all this stuff. They already know they're going to overhit their benchmark
within 10 minutes.
Yeah. But then they've mapped out where they're going to be by the end of it, because there's a lot of tools out there now to do that. And it's like, we're going to make the linen box finish. Well, you do that on all your other games. Why would you not have that built into this one? It's because you want to put a stretch goal to gain hype. And I think there are some good ones that have done that where you've seen genuinely good stretch goals. I think for me, the ones that stick in my head is where the stretch goals have gone too far. And one of my personal ones is Batman Gotham City Chronicles.
Yeah, this is it. I don't feel it's quite been as bad, but maybe that's because I haven't been going in for games that tend that way.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do think that my biggest problem... Hey, look, to be honest, I don't even want to go into money, but you spent a lot of money on Too Many Bones, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, through Kickstarter or Gamefound.
Gets brought up every episode.
Yeah, right as well. But for an example of me, I don't mind, it's me. I spent £300 on Terraforming Mars because I bought the big box, all the expansions, a load of extra metal cubes, 3D printed little ships, all of this stuff. But I knew what I was getting. I played the game, I loved the game, and I wanted to spend on a bit of bling and a bit of extras. All right, so that is a totally different experience to buying a game that you have never played, potentially not seen reviewed, and you're spending £600 on it. Now, my question is, all right, you can like the IP, but that's a big difference between liking the board game.
When I backed the Great Wall, I deliberately went for meeples rather than figures because it halved the cost. And I knew then that if it halved the cost and it meant it was an okay game, I didn't feel as bad as if they are beautiful miniatures. They are absolutely lovely. I've seen them in person. Kind of started to rethink that decision. But for the most part, I think I have done the right thing by going with meeples. But it doubled the price of the game to have all these tasty looking miniatures in the box. And again, I think my spending habits have changed slightly because of that sort of wariness of the fact that I have got rid of most Kickstarters that have come in because they haven't ended up hitting my top 50 list, and I've only got so much shelf space. So if it's not going to hit the top 50, it's going to take up 2 Calyx cubes or whatever it is with all these miniatures. It's not worth it for me. And so that's kind of not soured, but it certainly made me more wise to what I decide to kickstart and how far I go into that Kickstarter.
I think it's like a circle for me. It's, at the beginning of the circle when you've not done it before, and you kind of go in and go, oh, this is really exciting. I never gone through Kickstarter, getting all this new cool stuff, and then you kind of, it gets a bit addictive, and you keep doing it more and more and more. And I think now what's kind of taught me, and it wasn't even a Kickstarter game, it was Dune Imperium, right? And Dune Imperium, the base game, just comes with cubes, comes with wooden meeple components, and it's fine. Like, it actually is fine. And now, since then, I've done a deluxe upgrade, all minis and all that stuff. I'm just not interested in. And I thought, oh, I've changed. I feel like I've grown up. I feel like I've matured. And even to the point where I've backed ISS Vanguard, which is an Awakened Realms kind of story-based game, a lot like Mass Effect, basically, how it plays. They had the usual, you can buy all the minis, and it added
upgraded dice.
Yeah, added another 150, 160 quid on top. And I was like, no, I'm good, thanks. Actually, I'll just go with the base and try it out. Like you said, if it's not my thing, it's less of a risk.
You spent less on it in the first place, so it's okay to then had less of an experience with it.
And it's an Awakened Realms. I'm sure someone would have it if I didn't like it.
I think as well, we've kind of mentioned there a couple of times about shipping and that kind of stuff. And I think it's fair to say that in England, we've had probably a rougher time of Kickstarter in the last couple of years. Yeah. Obviously, both EU and British taxes changed in regard to Kickstarters. So we now get taxed on it, whereas before there seemed to be I'm not an expert, but certainly companies, whether they should or shouldn't have been doing tax, were definitely getting around it. And so we weren't necessarily paying tax on all of our Kickstarters.
Were they?
No. And then on top of that, we've had shipping, which has gone up globally, but also trying to get it into England has also gone up in price from mainland Europe. And so when I saw the Marvel Zombies, I was kind of surprised and kind of not at the same time, because it was like, oh, here's £240 of tax and shipping. And I kind of went, yeah, sounds about right. It's a lot, but it sounds about right. And now when I'm backing a game, I've just late backed Primal The Awakening, which again is kind of probably a bit against my better sensibilities, because it was
I've had a few of them, mate, don't worry.
It's for a base plus a couple of expansions was getting to about €200, and I'm going to pay shipping on top of that at some point in the future. I could be paying £300 for this game potentially. And you just kind of go, oh, that adds 50% onto the cost, and it makes what was before potentially like a no-brainer. If you like the look of the game, you were probably getting it cheaper or same plot price as retail. Now sometimes the games get here, they hit retail, and they may not have a couple of extra miniatures or a couple of extra cards, promo cards. You can get them cheaper in a board game store than you can from the Kickstarter themselves. I've noticed a few comments on socials of, it was £5 cheaper. I didn't get the promo cards, but it's £5 cheaper to wait for it.
I think, no, you're absolutely right, 100%. What I would say is I think it's people, and I don't know whether it's just me, but when I was back in Kickstarter, it wasn't really a massive concern of mine. because you were never really massively shocked by anything. You might have a quick look at the shipping, but that would be about it. But now, whenever I back a Kickstarter, first thing I do is have a look at what the shipping's going to be like, have a look at it, does it include VAT and all that kind of stuff.
Is it VAT friendly?
Yeah, exactly, because you could be looking at, well, like you said, I mean, I haven't seen 50%, but I've seen getting on that way. You know, paying 30, 40% more. Yeah. You know, because, well, VAT is 20%. There's that straight away. And then, depending what type of game it is, so if you are looking at, you know, base game plus about 18 expansions, you can guarantee the shipping is going to be well over 100.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, absolutely. Makes me research it a lot more than I used to, put it that way.
Yeah, I think that's. It sounds like we're all heading in the same direction, which is to say we're still backing Kickstarters, right?
We're a hell of a lot more choosier.
Just choosier, a bit more picky. Actually, doing a bit more research about the companies, shipping, taxes, what's involved with it, who's got behind it, watching reviews and stuff like that when we do back. But I think it is fair to say we're still looking at Kickstarters and Gamefound websites on a fairly regular basis.
Very regular basis for me, unfortunately.
To see what's coming out there. So, well, I think that's a pretty succinct summation of how we feel about crowdfunding culture, what we've done and what we're going to do. If you think we're right, if you think we're wrong, if you think we've missed something, we've definitely missed something.
Of course we have.
Then please add comments onto our Facebook or Instagram. Can you comment on Instagram?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Brilliant.
We're the cool kids, right?
Yeah. I don't do Instagram.
Even on TikTok as well, if you're so inclined.
TikTok you speak of?
Yes. What is this video bollocks?
Yeah, please leave us a comment and just let us know what you were thinking that we missed or got wrong or right.
Yeah, we love engagement, don't we? We just want to get engagement. So anyone comments, we get a little buzz and someone's listened, which is always good. So yeah,
it's like unlocking a stretch goal on Kickstarter.
Yeah,
that little buzz.
Yeah,
there we go.
50 of them.
Cheesy tie-in, right? Now on to our turn 3, where we'll be answering a listener's question. Today we've had Rhiannon, who wrote in and asked, do you think solo modes should be included as standard in the base game?
No.
I mean, that is an answer. Question. Yeah, I think we're done with that. Go on, JP, expand a little bit more on your one syllable.
I think solo games or solo modes, they need to be good, which is pretty an obvious statement to make, right? But I think the solo gaming and multiplayer gaming are quite different experiences. Like, for example, Kerley, you don't do solo gaming. You don't get anything out of it. Whereas I do a bit of both. I do a bit solo, as I talked about earlier, with Under Falling Skies, which is a purely solo game, which is kind of why I like it, because it's designed for that. So the reason why I kind of jumped in and say no is unless it's well thought out and either replicates the multiplayer experience in a way that doesn't have all the massive overhead that some of these solo modes can have, then I'm all for it. But if it's a bolt-on, like we said earlier, if it's we're just adding it in because we're trying to appeal to the solo players out there, then don't bother. Honestly, don't bother. It's not going to make me buy it personally.
I mean, you've mentioned about having the same feel as the multiplayer game. Yeah. But I think maybe I've been wrong, but when you've talked about Cloudspire before, you've said that has a very different feel in solo to how it does multiplayer.
Yeah, it doesn't always.
How does that feel?
Yeah, it doesn't always have to be a different or the same. And I think there can be good solo modes that do both, right? So the Cloudspire is a great example. You're playing a puzzle, you're not playing an opponent, essentially. You're trying to crack through the puzzle. So when you do it, you feel clever and that's all good. Same with Under Falling Skies, that's the same kind of principle. The one solo mode that I actually really do like is the Anachrony's new one that they released with the Fractures of Time. It's a cracking solo mode. It actually feels like you're playing an opponent in the way it works. Very, very clever. Not too bad on the overhead. My only problem is does it get to the table a lot? No, because it's an Anachrony. It's not like massive. It's a quick game I can just whip out. I've got to set the bloody thing up. There's loads of bits to it, so I've got to be in the mood.
And I think that's it, isn't it? I'm not much of a solo gamer. If your solo mode is going to detract from the main game, I'm going to say please keep it out of the box. What I will say is if you are a big solo gamer and you like multiplayer, that adds a lot of value to one game. Having said that, yeah, similar to you, I've looked at Marvel Champions. I've played solo because it adds no extra rules to it. Yeah, there's a bit of setup, but I've played that solo a few times, and I've played...
Would you solo one character, or would you solo two-handed?
Oh, no, one character, pure. So I understand why people do two-handed, but ultimately that's just one person playing two players. Yeah. That's not a solo mode to me. I know that some companies will try and sell you different on that. But to me, you're going to play one-handed, so you're going to play one character and you're going to have a go at the boss, and it still adds no rules.
I think I prefer it when the game is different solo, or is designed purely for solo. So actually one of the Kickstarters that's coming, that I'm actually really excited for, is Hoplomachus Victorum, which is a purely solo game. Don't get me wrong, this is the multiplayer remastered. Probably got that as well. But the Victorium is purely solo in the way that it works. And I can see myself playing that.
Yeah.
Because it's interesting the way it works mechanically. Your gladiators going around the world, fighting, all that kind of stuff. So I think that interests me more now, having kind of played a lot of these big box games that have solo modes or complex automators in there. I think I always think... Do I play them? I'd rather play the multiplayer, generally.
Yeah,
so, yeah,
I agree.
I think that's kind of where I'm landing with it.
I think I won't say too much on solo games because, you're quite right. My biggest problem with them is the setup time, really, is what it comes down to interest level. I'm never interested enough to go through that setup time. And I do like my big games. So there's usually a big setup time.
Yeah.
So if I've got to do that just for my own satisfaction, not play with someone... Not interested. I use computer gaming for that itch.
Which makes sense.
And, the flip side to the point that you're making, I think I can probably sum up from what I can hear of what you guys are saying, is just purely and simply, if a game has a bolt-on solo mode that makes sense, do it.
Yeah.
But I do believe they're trying to sometimes fit,
everything into one box.
Exactly. So if it leads that way, brilliant. Off the top of my head, I can well imagine that Too Many Bones plays really well single player. Right, as well as it does 2, 3, and 4.
Yes, great.
Exactly.
I'm going to say that.
So but that's the type of game that I can well imagine bleeds into it really, really well. But do not try and fit, square peg round hole.
Yeah.
Basically. Yeah. The other thing is as well, when I say computer games, I don't only mean computer games, I also mean board games that are on the computer. So for an example, I play a lot of Terraforming Mars on my own against AI.
Yeah, me too, yeah.
Yeah, I played Dominion like that. I played a few games of
really?
that. I've played Lords of Waterdeep with the expansions. I play that against the AI, So I much prefer that style of solo play.
That's because of the setup 0, isn't it?
Exactly.
You can just get straight 100%.
in. 100%.
Yeah.
Also, there's no automata because the computer does all that maths for you.
Yeah.
It either creates an AI or it replicates that automata that you get in the board game one for one.
Yeah.
And I do agree that quite often, if there's an app for it in solo, I might have a look at it if I've enjoyed the multiplayer.
Yeah, definitely.
There we go.
I think we've answered that one then.
We're done. Yeah.
Thank you very much. If anyone out there has got any more questions for us or any more topics they think they'd like us to cover, please feel free to ask and we shall add it to the list.
Get those questions.
So, in our penultimate turn, we like to talk about what we're going to be doing in the near future, gaming and non-gaming related. Go on then, JP. I can see you brimming with excitement.
I am very excited. I think the last episode I mentioned Champions in Midgard, which we still haven't played yet, but that's coming up Friday. But actually, I completely forgot that it was in the list. It's Game of Thrones. So we're going back to the start. So Game of Thrones is pretty much the game that got the group going, as we talked about many times. And I think we probably get it to the table once or twice a year.
Once, I would say.
Probably say once.
Probably once.
I always enjoy it. It's usually a long old bloody game, which is why we only play at the weekends.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just fun. You can just be a bit of a knob, and in the game, and it's allowed. It's encouraged.
I love it. I absolutely love it. One of my favourites. I would say probably top 10. But there's some obvious flaws.
Oh
to
yeah,
the
it's
game.
an old game though, isn't it?
But yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But I just love it. There's something about the way you all flip your orders at the same time, and the feel of it. Love Game of Thrones anyway. That just it's one of my favourites. So I'm really looking forward to that too.
Yeah, I think we've got 4 people planned to come. So actually, I think we'll probably just stick with the Westeros map, which will probably make you happier, Kerley. To be fair, because it will be a bit like the old school games. Might still use the vassal houses in because they're always good fun. But we'll see. So yeah, well, hopefully we'll get that to the table. I'm saying hopefully because who knows, right? I think if it drops down to 3 people, we won't be playing it.
I've played it. The first game I ever had was 3-player, and it didn't quite hit right. And then I played it again 4-player, and I could see. And I haven't played it since.
It's been 5 or 6.
It's been quite a few years since I've played it. I'm really looking forward to it. I've been playing a lot of Song of Ice and Fire.
Yeah,
which is the tabletop miniature game, and man, it's got my Game of Thrones sort of love back again since the TV show sort of.
It just feels like an event. It's got that kind of Twilight Imperium vibe to it, where you're going to turn up. It's a bit of an eventy day thing, and it doesn't matter if it takes 4, 5, 6 hours, whatever. Just get on with it.
We got four confirmed and 1 maybe. So I feel like if we are struggling, we could probably poke a few people in the right places, and we'll get them going.
or slit their throats.
It's one way to do it. Yeah, I'm wearing chainmail.
But whatever.
But that's me. That's what I'm excited for.
Yeah, fair enough. I am also excited for that. But we've got, let me think. We got the UKGE coming up, so looking forward to that, and that's going to be in a very short amount of time. Really looking forward to going. It'll be for my first time going. I was due to go 2 years ago, but COVID happened. Obviously, all the tickets were booked and everything else. And the year before, I bought tickets, but then something happened.
I think your friend came and visited from Korea.
That was exactly.
And you had to choose between your friend who was visiting or us.
Yeah.
And we lost out.
I mean,
I'm afraid.
You could do both, couldn't you? Like, just wandering around an exhibition hall for a few days.
Jet lag to hell.
I mean, to be fair, he'd be well up for it. He doesn't really know board games, but it was just the first time meeting his wife, I think.
Yeah, it's totally understandable.
But yeah, so I was a bit gutted to me, but you are right, that was exactly what it was. So I'm really looking forward to that. Going to go for only the 2 days, but all of Friday, pretty much all of Saturday. I think my wife Becky, who's been on the show, is taking part in the Crokinole Championship in that, so she's looking forward to that one. I need to go and have a look at the events and see whether I'm going to sign up to anything. I don't know if I will, but maybe if there's something Terraform Mars or something like that. That's what I signed up to last time.
There's usually a Nightmare live event.
Oh, really?
If you like Nightmare, the old 80s show.
I remember that back in that day.
There's always a kind of comedic version of that going on.
Yeah,
I'm not seeing it. I always think I'm going to go and watch it, but I never do. But I should do.
Games-wise, I haven't got too much in that, although I want to speak to these guys about planning in a particular game that I think would be a favourite of Adrian's that he hasn't played, I don't think.
Oh.
Go on, do tease.
Intriguing.
Icaion. Which me and JP absolutely love.
Okay.
And it seems like the type of game that I reckon you'd really like.
I'll always give it a go.
This was one of my successful Kickstarters. But yeah, it was. Have you ever heard of Mysthea? It's a nice puzzly kind of Euro-y type game with role-play elements, and it's really cool. It's really
quite
cool.
A unique theme with it.
Very unique theme about essentially looting a moving titan, right? As
Golem
it goes
thing.
along. And, but you'll I think it is right up your alley. And it's extremely highly rated, so I'm going to get that in soon. I know JP will be up for it, so
game.
I'll be putting that in. But that's basically it. I think I've got Mansions of Madness coming up, and a few other Perseverance as well.
Yeah. Nice. What about you, Adrian?
I think in just a couple of days' time, I've mentioned it already a couple of times, is the Great Wall.
Yeah.
I have had the Kickstarter sat on the shelf for a long time, and I'll be honest with you, I was scared of the teach. It's a lot of interlocking pieces where you clearly have to explain one piece, leave it out there to kind of go, I'm telling you about this because it's going to relate to this, which is going to relate to this, which is going to relate to this. And then if you come back round to that first bit I taught you, that's how it relates to that. And I just was not looking forward to it whatsoever. The rulebook has had a fair bit of criticism because it's not... Right, it's on Awaken Realms.
Yeah.
Awaken Realms rulebook, they're never the greatest. So it's come into a fair bit of criticism. I've watched a couple of YouTube videos now where they do the teach, and I think I've understood the game enough to teach it. So we're going to get it to the table later this week. and I'm really looking forward to it. I've really wanted to play it. It just scared me. I think there are some games that you just get and they genuinely scare you a little bit to kind of get them out for the first time and everything that comes with it. And that was just one of those for me, but super excited to be playing that.
I'm just intrigued to see how an Awakened Realms game kind of works as a Euro game. Because I never played one of theirs as a Euro.
I think it's the only one, I think.
I've got to say, that everything else is really thematic and just a different vibe altogether. So I'm intrigued by it. I've heard about it. I've seen it before. But yeah, I'm definitely willing to give it a go.
When you put Perseverance out, I was like, have I now got a game that's already going to topple the Great Wall? Because the first episode has that. You have
Tower
a wall,
defense,
you are defending it, and there's all of this worker placement behind it, and it did look a lot like it. I think having played the episode 1 of Perseverance and having watched enough of the Great Wall to understand it, I think there's going to be enough difference in there for us
sure it will be.
to see whether or not one's come out on top, and or if they're dissimilar enough to have them both as options. But no, I'm really excited for that.
Okay, exciting times. As always, lots of stuff to look forward to, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, good times. And with that, our final turn is wrapping up and victory points are about to be scored. Thanks everyone for listening. If you've enjoyed the show, please like, subscribe and leave us a review on your favourite podcast player. If you want to get in touch with the show, we now have several methods of doing so. Either email us at players@whoseturn.co.uk, check us out on Facebook at Whose Turn Is It Anyway Podcast, or the Instagram page at Whose Turn Podcast, or finally, if you're not an old man like me, TikTok at Whose Turn Is It Anyway. We'll be back in 2 weeks with another episode, so until then, whose turn is it anyway?